following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, and you are flying high with me, the Zigzag Man, over the zone in Alameda, California, down by the lagoon. We are right across the bay from San Francisco, and I have a terrific guest in studio. This is not by phone. Returning, the prodigal son returns to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Brother Scott, and he is going to demystify the Middle East situation as of December 9th, 2017. I give you Brother Scott.
Ralph, you're embarrassing me.
Embarrassing you?
Well, I'm as mystified as anybody about the Middle East. It's mystifying. I'm as mystified as anybody about the Middle East.
Okay.
It's a mysterious place to an Occidental eye and ear.
Scott, how did we get to this point in history, and what does Trump's decision to help make Israel what Benji wants, a Jewish state only, and what are going to be the effects, the ramifications, the Palestinians' response, the Arab community? What in the heck is going on? You take it, you're the most informed guy, know about the situation because you're objective. I can't be objective, given my Zionist history and my cultural Judaism. You can. Given your Goyishness, which I love. Here you go, Scott. Take it away.
Crack me up. I think Bibi is needs a diversion, and so does Donald. And I don't know that about Benjamin Netanyahu, but I can gather from what I've seen of Trump that he's mainly looking out for himself in whatever he does. And this is one of those cases, it seems to me. He needs a diversion. Things aren't going so well in the Trump camp right now, if you haven't noticed. So you need to do something to rally the troops around the flag. So somebody in the West Wing, maybe he was on the phone to his buddy Bannon, his former strategist, who said, dude, you gotta throw some red meat to the hardcore fans and mobilize the base. Get on him. Move Jerusalem. Move to Jerusalem. And so I don't even think he has a profound thought about it. And by that I mean anything outside his own self-interest and maybe some casual knowledge that he picked up on the fly. But Bibi also has his problems. He's been unpopular in many circles, and his coalition government is a multi-party government coalition. And if even one of those minor parties that he had to bed down with, these are mostly Orthodox and fundamentalist in their outlook, worldview, if any of them leaves the coalition, he has to call the new elections. And he's not the most popular guy in the state of Israel right now, in the political arena. He's by no means the most popular guy.
Who's the most popular guy, Scott?
That I don't know. I don't know who it is. I don't know who's current. The names I know are from a generation ago and stuff. Okay. You know.
All right. We're going to take a little break here and pause for the cause. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko, the weak link of it all. I'm blessed with the brains of the operation, one of them anyway, Scott of the Brother Variety. I'm flying high this time with Brother Scott. We're talking about Benji and his popularity, unpopularity currently in Israel. Elaborate on that, if you would, Brother Scott.
All we can tell you is what I recall from reading in the press and watching it on the news, and the sources are many and varied. It's not just one take or slant on it. It's liberal media outlets, conservative media outlets, what some would call mainstream media outlets, what others might call alternative press outlets. Everybody's had something to say about it in the last few years, and from a variety of sources you get the impression, the distinct impression, that Benjamin Netanyahu, not unlike the Donald himself in this way, has a hardcore base that won't leave his side. It's considered beyond conversion. It's not going to happen. They're going to follow him if he leads them over a cliff. And there are the Trumpanzees, so-called here, who sometimes come off that same way. I'm speaking most particularly, but not exclusively, about the fundamentalist Christian variety who earnestly support a guy who's the antithesis of everything they claim to believe.
Don't exclude the conservative Jews who have a lot of bucks and determine a lot of elections by their influence and their financial,
Positioning?
Yeah, positioning. That's the best way to say it. Accume. Their ability to accumulate gelt. And that determines a lot of elections. So, and plus, Trump has to please the arms makers who are selling arms to both sides, so it behooves them to keep the flow of things going war-wise. What I'd like you to address for a second is the Arab wars, the inter-Arab wars that they have going and always have. You and I disagree whether or not this is good for the Israelis. Does it give the Arabs a chance to concentrate on something else but driving the Israelis into the sea, which seems to be what they enjoy doing most of all in life, besides things that aren't nice. Because I can't be objective and I can't say anything about stooping goats or anything. Well, maybe I can because it's my podcast, but Scott wouldn't say anything like that. Brother Scott, is peace a pipe dream in our lifetime? We're both, I'm little on the northern side of 70, and Scott's on the southern side of 70, but, you know, we're all... Right. Scott just said the sand is running out of the hourglass. I'm going to turn the mic back over to him, and he will tell you whether or not he thinks there's still, in our lifetime, hope for peace. Brother Scott.
Hang on a second. Yeah, there's hope.
All right, tell me why you say that, and please give me some reason for optimism.
Oh, that's another question. I'm not optimistic. I said there's hope. You never want to give up hope.
Right, well...
there's hope.
That's true.
It's not likely.
It's not likely.
It looks tough, and it is an uphill swim.
Do you think Trump's decision to help Israel have the embassy in Jerusalem and have Jerusalem be the capital of Israel, do you think that sends a good message about peace to the world or a bad message about peace to the world?
Well, you know that they can't get any allies to go along with it.
Okay.
Vatican ain't going along with it. England ain't going along with it. France and Germany ain't going along with it. I mean, I don't know of any ally that's going along with it. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any allies going along with it.
Okay.
And when I say that, I mean, we're talking in very stilted two-dimensional terms. When we talk about countries, we really mean a certain small circle of people who run the show. We're not talking about the citizenry at large in any of these countries. But we talk as if, well, the United States today did this and that and the other thing. When, hell no. A few people in the United States who were bossing everybody else around did it, but the rest of us didn't do it. And the same goes in any country you want to point to. There's no country where it doesn't work that way.
Scott, may I ask you this? The first thing that came to mind for me when Trump made the announcement was that Trump and Benji are goading the Palestinians to react in a manner, basically violence. They will sacrifice a few of their own, a few folks all over the world, to unite folks against the Arab nations. And that's just my question. Do you think it's a deliberate thing, more than just make the capital? They're just looking for all-out warfare, those two combined, because is that their idea?
I can't read their minds, but I don't think that's their idea. I think that they both need a political distraction right now. And whether you believe that's the main reason they're doing it, or another important reason they're doing it, or not a very important reason at all, it's important to acknowledge that there's some personal, idiosyncratic, tactical political considerations, or strategic, if you will, political considerations. At least it's easy to see in the Trump camp, because we're up close and we see it. We're far away from Israel, and we don't follow the news like we should. So I can say in the Trump case, damn, that guy is pointing over there and rallying people around the flag because it's looking bad on other fronts. And I think the same applies to Bibi Netanyahu, because I know he had to reorganize his coalition not too long ago, in the last year or so, because some of the minority parties said he had to hold together in order to govern without having to call a new election. Some of those small, minor, relatively minor splinter parties of the fundamentalist and ultra-Orthodox variety, some of them were dropping out. They were leveraging the fact that they needed to get the government in Israel to do things for them, and they decided, one of them decided to drop out of the coalition, and now Bibi had to go find somebody else to make a deal with. It's all smoke-filled room, backdoor dealing, horse trading stuff. It's corrupt from top to bottom, and it's everywhere. And if you think you're in a country where
that's the case too. It's not just the Republicans; it's the Democrats.
I'm not even talking about the parties, although you make a valid point. I'm talking about the institutions. The institutions are designed and they actually facilitate that. Now, I don't mean to say somebody sat down and say, how crooked can we make this? It's not some evil Lex Luthor from another planet that did it, or some other, super villain.
It's just business. The people, it's the hierarchy of the big institutions. It is like Scott and I talked about when we first started this podcast, when it was just me, comfortably zoned with Scott and Ralph, and we talked about the unholy trinity, which is organized religion, big business, and government conspiring to kill the people. I mean, really and truthfully, on every different level, exploit the people. Let's put it that way. On every level. What sickens me most is organized religion, because they act as middle people to people's belief system. Scott wants to say something.
Paradoxically, that belief you just so eloquently stated doesn't prevent you from lining up behind the ultra-Orthodox fundamentalist parties in Israel.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, Scott. We've talked about this for 10 years. I have no objectivity about Zionism. And I can't, because I was literally there in 1949 when Israel became a state. and my relatives were the ones that got out or didn't get out of harm's way, Exodusville, as they called it in those days, to go to Israel. So no, I can't be objective, but nor can you, because you're not a Jew. You don't have relatives over there. You don't have feelings for what goes on. Sometimes when it appears in the paper that the bomb in the baby carriage, as I like to call it, went off again, it may not even cross your threshold, not because you don't care. It's just because you're not as in tune. You don't have 9 first cousins over there, and you misjudge terrorism as to how many lives. You make it statistical. How many lives? Well, there's just a few lives. But you know what? Hundreds of thousands of lives were affected by those few lives that died, because we are a culture that treasures life. We're not looking to be martyrs, because we don't really think that there are virgins in heaven waiting for us if we blow up people's children. We're funny that way. Call us quirky, if you will, and call us realism freaks. You're not going to deal, you're not going to negotiate with a group of folk who put chattel ahead of their wives, ahead of their daughters. They treat the chattel better than they do their wives and daughters by the nature of the beast. That's why I'm hoping, like you, like a motherfucker, that it happens, that there is going to be V's. But we both don't seem to believe it. I think that the Israeli Jews have, and Israeli Americans and Trump and all, have a responsibility, because we are cultural. We have a certain. We're not the first generation. Goatstupper or whatever you want to say. So we have a responsibility if there's going to be peace, but you could only go so far. How do you negotiate with Iran? How do you negotiate with North Korea, for instance? Third world countries. How do you get China to keep from destroying us ecologically when they make deals? That's a good point. On that, Scott, this has been terrific having you here. This is a good. Will you please promise to come back more often and visit us at the 420 studio in Alameda, California, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network? I am the weak link of it all. Ralph Zig Tyko, Brother Scott, my buddy. See you next time, pal.
Hasta la vista.
Adios and shalom.